Okay, now we will begin on the cover. I'm going to try and stay all in frame, but it's going to be really long, so it might be difficult, but I'm going to try. Okay, so the pieces of chipboard that you will need, the spine, the centerpiece, will measure 8 1/4 by 4. You'll need 2 pieces that measure 8 1/4 by 10 1/2. So these 2 here. And then on the ends, you'll need 2 pieces that measure 2 wide by 8 1/4 tall. Okay, so get those pieces cut out. And normally when I'm using black chipboard, I don't completely cover the whole thing. However, because there's probably going to be a lot of people that don't have black chipboard, that have just the regular craft colored chipboard, I'm going to cover the whole thing. Okay, so you're going to need 4 pieces of cardstock measuring 10 1/4 by 8 1/2. So we've got all of our cardstock pieces are 8 1/4, so you want an inch above and an inch below, so that's where the 10 1/4 comes from. So now we are going to adhere all of these together to make one long piece of cardstock in which to wrap our chipboard. So I'm just going to add a bit of score tape. Okay, and attach together. And the next one. If you're using 12 by 12 cardstock, then you won't need to have a full 4 pieces. You'd probably be able to get away with 3 for sure. So as long as the height, you just want an inch all the way around your chipboard pieces. So as long as you have that, that's the main thing. Well, it's a little bit off, but that's okay. And one more. Okay. Alright, there we go. Now we have one long piece of cardstock. And now we are going to use, you can use liquid glue or score tape. I'm going to use the Tombow Aqua Mono liquid glue. And we are going to adhere our pieces. We'll start with one of the 2-inch. And you're going to place it with about an inch to spare all the way around. So about like that. You can use score tape as well. The liquid glue does give you a little bit of leeway as it dries if you don't put it in the proper place right away. Next we'll be doing one of the large pieces, the, what is it, 10 1/2 by 8 1/4. And you want to leave just a wee bit of space in between, maybe 1/8 of an inch in between your chipboard pieces so that they have room to crease without hitting each other. Okay, and next we'll have our spine piece, which is the 8 1/4 by 4. Okay, leaving just a tiny gap. And now your next large piece here. Oh. And then your last piece. Now we don't have quite 1 inch on this side. It's enough to do what we need to do, but I should have moved this over just a titch. Just a titch. Alright, let's put this last piece on there. Alright, excellent. Now I'm going to give that a few minutes to dry, and then we will put score tape all the way around this whole chipboard area, and we'll wrap her up. Alright, so I've got score tape going all the way around the outside edge. Okay, and now this is something that I do. You don't necessarily have to do this, but I like to cover the spaces. See how there's the spaces in between each of these? I'm going to put, you can use Tyvek, or you can use duct tape. So I'm going to put just a strip of duct tape in between each of those creases, just for added strength, just so they're going to be getting bent a lot, so you don't want the paper to rip. So the addition of either Tyvek or duct tape will really help so that that does not tear apart. Okay, and it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, because this, your whole cover is going to cover part of it, the top and the bottom, and then your pattern paper will cover the rest. So you'll just see this tiny little bit in between. And the last one, Okay, so that just gives it a little bit of extra strength there in the creases. And now before we start to wrap, we want to cut the corners, so mitering the corners, and you want to leave just a tiny little bit of space right there between the chipboard and the edge of the paper. Just a little bit. So cut all 4 corners. Okay. And now you want to kind of start training this. So I usually just kind of pull on it a little bit just so it kind of knows where it's supposed to go. Do that to all 4 sides. Now we'll do the long sides first. So remove the backing from the score tape. And I find it best to start in the center and kind of work your way along to the sides. Get your bone folder out and give it a good crease here. And then the other long side. Okay, and now before you do the 2 shorter sides, take your bone folder or pen or something, ruler, and just kind of push in that tiny little corner. So you're just taking the corner and just pushing it in a little bit just so you don't have a point when you do the shorter sides, just kind of pushing it in a little bit, and then remove the backing from the score tape. And pull that in. Alright, and you should have a nice corner there now. And we'll do the same on the other side. Just kind of push the corner in just a little bit. And remove the score tape backing. Alright, and now you just want to slowly kind of train each of those folds. Alright, and this will come together like this. We're going to have a couple buckles here to close it. And the pages will go in the center. Alright, so that is that. And now we are going to set this aside for just a moment, and we will work on the hinge system and the expandable. So the pages are so thick that we want them to lie flat. So I'm going to make an expandable binding so it can kind of move to either side a little bit, give it a little bit more wiggle room to maneuver as you're opening the pages. So set this aside. And we're going to need our scoreboard. And for the actual spine, the hinge I mean, you will need a piece of cardstock that measures 7 1/8 by 9 3/4. Okay, 7 1/8, 9 3/4. Put it in your scoreboard on the 9 3/4 side. And my bone tool, or my scoring tool. Okay, so on the one side you are going to make the following score marks. 3/4. 2 1/4. 3, 4 1/2, 5 1/4, 6 3/4, 7 1/2, and 9. Okay, I'm going to say those again. 3/4, 2 1/4, 3, 4 1/2, 5 1/4, 6 3/4, 7 1/2, and 9. Okay, and now we're going to flip the paper over, and we're going to score again at 1 1/2, 3 3/4, 6, and 8 1/4. So this is going to give us 3/4 inch gussets in between the pages, and the part that the page slips onto is also going to be 3/4 of an inch. And we're doing the score lines, like we're flipping the paper over, because I've already broken the rules twice. So I'm not going to break them again. You can't break them 3 times in one tutorial. So all of these folds, every mountain is turning into a valley, every valley is turning into a mountain. But first, before we do all of our folds, you don't have to do this, but I highly recommend either Tyvek, or again you can use the duct tape. However, Tyvek, because it's so much thinner, it is a better option. So I need to cut a piece of Tyvek. I get my Tyvek envelopes from Amazon. Alright, let's see here. So I just buy the envelopes and cut them open. So I need it to be 7 1/8. By 9 3/4. Now I'm going to put score tape all over the back of the Tyvek and put it on, and then I will do all my folds. And again, this is just so there's some serious strength in your hinge system, and no matter how many times you flip the pages, it's not going to rip. You always want as much strength as possible. You want these albums to last as long as they can, even though they're only made out of paper and chipboard. You want them to last a long time. Okay, now remove all the backing from all of that. Okay, perfect. And now we're going to place it down. Okay, and now fold on all your score lines. So see, this is a valley, it's an indent, so we're turning it into a mountain, and then anything that is an indent is going the opposite direction. So valleys into mountain, mountains into valleys. Okay, so when things are all folded, you should have something that looks like this. So these are the sections that your page is going to go onto, and this is the gusset in between. So now we want to attach these together, so we're going to apply score tape every time there's an like a indent here. That's where we're going to apply the score tape. So Okay, so this is what it should look like. So these two here are going to go together. And then these two here, here, and here. So as we remove the backing, okay, so this is your first flange, is that what they're called? So this is what your first page will go over. Alright, and then there's a space, and then the next two go together. Okay, and then there's another space, and then the next two go together. Okay, so you've got 3 there, and then a space, and then this last one. Alright, so we've got 3/4 and a flange. 3/4 inch space, another flange, 3/4, flange, 3/4, flange, 3/4, which equals exactly 4 inches across, which is what our spine is. Alright, so that is what your pages will go on to. Now we are going to make and there's your tie back on the back there. And now we are going to make the expandable part so that the pages have a little bit more leeway to move around. So for that one, you will need a piece of cardstock measuring 7 1/8 by 11. Okay, and we're going to do a whole bunch of score marks again. Okay, so 1 1/2 is your first score mark. 2 1/2. 3 1/2. And then we jump over to 7 1/2. 8 1/2. 9 1/2. Okay, so 1 1/2, 2 1/2, 3 1/2, 7 1/2, 8 1/2, 9 1/2. Now we flip the paper over and we score again at 2, 3, 8, and 9. Okay? And again, I recommend doing some Tyvek. You only have to do Tyvek where the score lines are. So we're going to get 2 strips of Tyvek. It's not quite wide enough, but it'll do. Or maybe we should go this way and do the whole. Okay, so this one will work. We need 2 pieces of Tyvek that are about 3 inches by 7 1/8, or 7 is fine. There's one. Let's cut a second one. Okay. Again, put your score tape on the back of the Tyvek. Get your scoreboard out of the way here. Alright, and now remove the score tape and we'll just place it over top of where the score lines are. Do the same on the other side, and then we'll fold and crease really well on all of those score lines. Okay, so following that same Valley Mountain rule, you're basically going to be like accordioning, making an accordion. I think I just made up a word. Okay, so just like that. That's what it's going to look on either side. Alright, so we've got something that looks like that. So that is going to sit down on your spine. This is going to sit on top of it, and then as you flip the pages there'll be a little bit more wiggle room for them to move. First we need to really burnish these down. Bone folder. Especially now that we have the Tyvek in there, it's going to make it so a little bit thicker, so really all right. Excellent. Okay, so now we can bring our cover back in. Let's get some of this mess out of the way here. Alright, so this is now going to sit perfectly right there. Okay, so we're going to use some wet adhesive just on the two side flaps here. Okay, so I've got it just on those two back flaps, and now we are going to line it up. It will fit perfectly in there. And you might have to be patient a little bit because this is going to take a couple minutes to dry. Make sure that these still have the space to come up and to fold properly. Okay, and then this part is going to glue right down on top of that. Now I'm just going to get rid of this excess Tyvek that I've got sticking out here. Okay, perfect. So we'll put some glue on the back of this whole thing and attach it right on top. You can use score tape as well. For things like this where it has to be so precise, I don't know, I like glue better just because it gives you that little bit of time to maneuver things around. Okay. And like rub in between every single gusset. Okay, I'm going to give this a couple minutes to dry, and then we can add our pages to it, and then we will continue doing the inside covers and all that jazz.